April 28, 2016 marks the third anniversary of Janos Starker's death. Mr. Starker was a friend of mine, and I have been wanting to do something to ensure future generations are aware of his contributions to the world of music. As many of you know, Mr. Starker was both a teacher and performer. He not only leaves behind hundreds of students carrying on his approaches and techniques of cello playing, but he also leaves behind nearly as many recordings of his music making. It is this legacy of recorded music that Mr. Starker leaves us with that I want to focus on here. Let's start by taking a look at actual examples of the various media that have been commercially available over the years of Mr. Starker's recordings. His recording career started with analog recordings at the tail end of the 78 RPM record era, and he continued to record into the digital age of this century. We won't be listening to any of Mr. Starker's recordings here. Instead, we will be strictly looking at the wide variety of media that has been, and in many cases, still is available that preserves his music making. Here we are looking at one of the 78 RPM records of a Starker recording. It was released and recorded in France by the Pacific General Disc Company, and this particular recording is a composition by Manuel de Falla called Popular Spanish Suite. It was released in a 2-record set circa 1948. The record we are looking at is the first record in the set. As a little background, this arrangement from the original 7 Spanish folk songs was done by Maurice Maréchal, a French cellist. Mr. Starker's partner on this recording is pianist George Solchani. All of the 78 RPM recordings Mr. Starker made were with Pacific. This Starker recording is on a 12-inch diameter record. I will take a closer look at these 78 RPM recordings, and we will be listening to some of them at a later time. By the 1950s, many record companies had moved away from making 78s in favor of the long playing record, or LP. Most LP records are 12 inches in diameter. These are the kind of records that many of you are probably familiar with, and that in recent years have made a resurgence in the audio market. It is this media format that Mr. Starker made the majority of his recordings. LPs are played at 33 1/3 RPMs. Here we have an actual LP Mr. Starker recorded for Period Records in New York, circa 1951, of Johann Sebastian Bach's Cello Suite No. 1 on side 1 of the record, and Cello Suite No. 4 on side 2. Besides the standard 12-inch diameter record, LPs were also available in other sizes. Here we have an example of a 10-inch diameter record of one of Mr. Starker's recordings. This particular record was released and recorded circa 1962 by the German Phonograph Company, or Deutsche Grammophon, as it is more commonly referred to. This is a recording of Johannes Brahms' Concerto for Violin, Cello, and Orchestra, often called the Double Concerto. The violinist on this recording is Wolfgang Schneiderhan, and he and Starker are playing with the Berlin Radio Symphony Orchestra under the direction of Ferenc Fricsay. Finally, here we have an example of a 7-inch extended play record, or EP, played at 45 RPMs, commonly called a 45. Many of you may be familiar with this size and type of record. The jacket on this record mistakenly states that the record should be played at 33 1/3 RPMs, but be assured that this particular Starker recording is played at 45 RPMs. This isn't the only error regarding this recording. The discography in Mr. Starker's autobiography, The World of Music According to Starker, mistakenly states that this is Arcangelo Corelli's, quote, Sonata in D major, opus 5, number 7, unquote. This recording is actually the Sonata in D minor on side 1 and Antonio Vivaldi's Concerto in D major on side 2. This record was manufactured and released in England by the Delta Record Company Limited in 1962, but the recording itself was made circa 1951 by a different company in New York. Mr. Starker's partner on this recording is pianist Marilyn Meyer. Thus far, all the media we have seen have been phonograph records. Let's take a look at a different media format here, magnetic tape. Our first example is of a reel-to-reel or open-reel tape. Commercially available pre-recorded open-reel tapes became popular primarily in the audiophile market in the 1960s, and the vast majority of recording companies ceased making pre-recorded open-reel tapes in the 1980s. Here we have an example of a commercially available Starker recording on a pre-recorded 5-inch open reel. This is a recording of cello and piano sonata numbers 1, 4, and 5 by Ludwig van Beethoven. Mr. Starker's partner on this recording is pianist Georges Shebach. This is an Arato recording made in Paris in 1959, but this particular tape was made in Great Britain circa 1964 by the World Record Club Limited. Now let's look at another magnetic tape format, the 8-track cartridge or 8-track tape, formerly called Stereo 8. Like the tape in an open reel, the tape in an 8-track cartridge is 1/4 inch in width. The 8-track cartridge was most popular from the mid-1960s to the late 1970s. Here we have a commercially available pre-recorded 8-track cartridge of a recording Mr. Starker made for Mercury Records in 1962 of Antonin Dvorak's Concerto for Cello and Orchestra and of Kol Nidre by Max Bruch. Mr. Starker is playing with the London Symphony Orchestra under the direction of Antal Dorati. The last magnetic tape format that we will look at is the compact cassette, oftentimes more simply referred to as a cassette. From the 1970s to the early 2000s, the cassette was one of the two most common formats for pre-recorded music, the first being the LP, and then later the compact disc, or CD. Here we have a pre-recorded cassette that was commercially available circa 1995 by Soul Records Incorporated, Korea, under license of Victor Entertainment Incorporated, Japan. This recording has Mr. Starker playing the Arpeggion Sonata for cello and piano composed by Franz Schubert, and César Franck's Sonata for cello and piano in A major. Mr. Starker's partner on the Schubert is pianist Shuko Iwasaki, and this recording was made in Tokyo in 1970. Mr. Starker's partner on the Franc is Georges Sebach and was made in Italy in 1971. So far, all the media formats we have seen have been analog recordings that Mr. Starker made. However, as I stated earlier, Mr. Starker recorded into the digital age of this century. Here we have an example of a commercially available pre-recorded CD of an early digital recording made by Mr. Starker. The CD format was originally developed to store and play sound, and it is likely that you are familiar with this media format that was first commercially available in 1982 and is still widely popular today. This particular CD has Mr. Starker playing Bach Cello Suite numbers 4, 5, and 6. They were recorded in 1984 by Cephal Records, Canada. At this same time, Mr. Starker also recorded Bach Cello Suite numbers 1, 2, and 3 for Cephal, which were available on a separate disc. All of these recordings were also available on Cephal LPs. I believe these Cephal recordings are the first digital recordings of all of the Bach cello suites. Just as the pre-recorded open-reel magnetic tape primarily attracted the audiophile, so does the Super Audio Compact Disc, or SACD. SACDs were intended to be the successor to the CD because of their higher audio quality and longer playing time, even though they were the same physical size as a CD. SACDs were first introduced in 1999, and if they are not hybrid SACDs, they will not play back on a standard CD player. The SACD you see here was commercially released in 2004 by Top Music International Limited under license from Delos. The tracks here are a Hans Buttermund and Starker composition of the variations on a theme of Paganini, recorded in 1978 in Japan, Zoltan Kodai's Sonata for Unaccompanied Cello, recorded in Japan in 1970, and Kodai's Duo for Violin and Cello, recorded in 1973 at Indiana University. Mr. Starker's partner on the duo recording is violinist Joseph Gingold. The 2496 digital audio disc, or DAD, is another audiophile digital format also having the same physical dimensions as a CD. This DAD can be played back on a standard CD player. Here we are looking at a 2496 DAD made and released by Classic Records Incorporated circa 2000. These are compositions by David Baker titled Singers of Songs, Weavers of Dreams for cello and 17 percussion instruments, and Sonata for cello and piano. Some of you may be aware that David Baker passed away last month at the age of 84. Mr. Starker's partner on Singers of Songs, Weavers of Dreams is percussionist George Gaber, recorded by Laurel Records at Indiana University in 1980. Mr. Starker's partner on the Sonata is pianist Alan Planes, recorded by Columbia Records circa 1975. The discography mistakenly states that the Sonata was also recorded at Indiana University in 1980. Besides leaving just audio recordings of his music making, Mr. Starker also left us video recordings. Here we have an example of a commercially available hi-fi VHS tape set, 3 altogether, memorializing not only Mr. Starker's legacy of music making, but also his teaching. This VHS tape is an analog recording. In this set, Mr. Starker teaches and plays Kodai's Sonata for Unaccompanied Cello. Additionally, there are conversations with Mr. Starker and with his colleagues Helga Winold and Emilio Colon. The portion of the video showing Mr. Starker's teaching was recorded in the summer of 1999, while the playing of the sonata by Mr. Starker was filmed during a live performance in Japan in 1988. This videotape was produced by WTIU Indiana University Television in conjunction with the Ava Yanzer Memorial Center circa 1999. Here we have a laserdisc. Like the VHS tape, the laserdisc is an audio-visual recorded medium. The laserdisc combines analog and digital technologies. Here, the video portion is in an analog format, while the accompanying audio is in a digital format, and this recording is in stereo. The 1988 live performance of the Kodai, previously mentioned on the VHS tape set, is on this laserdisc. During this same concert in Tokyo, Mr. Starker also played Bach's Cello Suite No. 3 and Gaspar Casado's Suite for Solo Cello. Both of these are also included on this laserdisc. This laserdisc was commercially released by Toshiba EMI circa 1989. Laserdiscs are 12 inches in diameter and are made up of aluminum discs layered in plastic. The last commercially available media format of Mr. Starker's recordings that we're going to look at is the Digital Versatile Disc, or DVD. The DVD we are looking at is a video DVD. This video DVD contains exactly the same material as the Laserdisc previously discussed. This DVD was released by Parnassus Records, New York, circa 2013. The DVD format was first made commercially available in 1995 in Japan. A DVD has the same dimensions as a CD. Earlier, I mentioned that Mr. Starker had recorded into this century. However, all the recordings I have referred to thus far were made during the 20th century. Here we have a commercially available recording that was made in February 2004 in El Paso, Texas, of a live concert with Mr. Starker playing Luigi Boccherini's String Quintet in C major, G 349, and Franz Schubert's String Quintet in C major, D 956, along with violinists Kurt Nikkanen and Soo-Vin Kim, violist Kirsten Johnson, and cellist Zool Bailey. This CD was released by Delos in 2005. We have seen the multitude of commercially available audio and in some cases video recordings of Mr. Starker's music making. There certainly is no shortage in the number of recordings that Mr. Starker leaves us with. I hope you will continue to watch for further installments here, because in the coming months I plan on playing some of his recordings for you.